All right, Dawn, we did a Heisman draft earlier. Now we're going to do a very, very fun one. It is a guaranteed first rounder draft. So, what we're going to do right now is draft players that we think are absolute locks to be first round picks in the 2025 NFL draft. Not guys who come back to school for another year and go in 2026. No. This year's draft going to be first round picks. And how this is going to work, Dawn, is not a set number of players. It's not like, oh, I take 5 players and you take 5 players. It's however many you want, man. Because for every one you get right, and we'll go back to this in April when the draft happens, for every player you get right, you get 1 point. Every player you get wrong, you get deducted 3 points. So you really need to be picky and choosy here, not just take 32 players. You got to be really I think it'd be fun, man. I think it'd be fun to see who we end up taking in this draft. But, Dawn, I gave you the first pick because I was very gracious. And who are you taking with the number 1 overall pick?
And we have to figure out down the line what the stakes are going to be for this if we're keeping score. We got plenty of months to make bets on it, but we got to figure out what the punishment's going to be for losing this. But no, I'll start with the first pick. I think, look, Trevor has him number 1 on his big board. He might be the best football player in the country. Defensive tackle, Mason Graham for Michigan, and he just to me it feels like last year I thought Joe Alt was the safest pick in the draft. I think this year it's Mason Graham. I could very easily see him being one of the elite defensive tackles in the NFL. He's the best defensive lineman in college football right now. Run game, pass game, took over the playoffs last year. Just so good at just about everything. I don't see how Mason Graham could possibly fall out of the first round.
Yeah, he's a top 3 player on my board, but not one of my top 2 players. And since we're doing Snake here, I get my top 2 players here, Dawn. So thank you very much for that. Number 1 for me is Travis Hunter, the receiver corner from Colorado. There is no earthly way this guy falls out of the first round, no matter what happens next year. He is too rare of a football player, too rare of an athlete. And no matter where you want him, he's a first-round talent at either. So even if he has a bad year at receiver, Dawn, he'd be a first-round corner. If he has a bad year at corner, he's a first-round receiver. So I think there's really no way that this guy falls out of the first round unless something horrible happens, and knock on wood, nothing happens to him. But Travis Hunter is as rare of a player as we've ever seen, I think, in college football, and I would be floored if he is not a first-round pick ultimately in next year's draft. I'm sending over my next pick to Eli right now. I should have done this earlier. But my other pick, Dawn, will be another corner and Mason Graham's teammate. Will Johnson is my other pick for right now. I think he is one of the best corners we've seen in college in recent memory. I've had the comp for a long time, and actually Trevor Sikkema also had this comp. Now, when he's scouting him, Pat Surtain, man, I see a lot of Pat Surtain in his game. Pat Surtain was a top 10 pick in the draft. Probably should have been even higher than that when you look back on it. So Will Johnson, a rare player in terms of his technique. His footwork is fantastic. He is locked down elite receivers in the past, like Marvin Harrison Jr. He did well against Rome Odunze as well. I think Will Johnson, again, like Travis Hunter, I'd be shocked if both those guys aren't top 10 picks, let alone first rounders.
Oh, no, I agree. Absolutely. And I think with Hunter, the discussion is just going to be which side of the ball is he playing, or is it both sides, or however that's going to go. And if he plays the full season this year, I think he could be in Heisman contention with his talents. You're probably right. There's no way athletically that he could fall out of the first round. But I feel pretty good about both picks I'm going to make right here. I'm sending them both to Eli right now. But the focus for me, and I like it, I think corner is one of them, is on premium positions, right? Like balancing talent versus the positions that usually get taken in the first round, right? But I think we still have some more players here at these positions, and I'm taking 2 of them right now. I'm going to start on the offensive line with the best offensive lineman in the country, left tackle for LSU, Will Campbell. He's already had 2 spectacular years for the Tigers, and he's going to have a third one. I mean, it takes only the best of the best guys when you talk about guys who are taken in the top 50 of the draft who can beat him, especially in pass protection, and he's the best gap scheme blocker in the country. Everything about Will Campbell's profile is clean. Not only would I guarantee he goes first round, I think he's just about guaranteed to go top 10 next year. He's going to be the first offensive tackle off the board. And then the second one, I'm staying at a premium position. Maybe it's not quite last year's class, but the best receiver in the country is Luther Burden the third, and wide receiver ones go in the first round, right? I think there's 2 guys that are certainly in contention for this, the other being Tetro McMillan. But right now, Burden across the board is being considered wide receiver 1. Going to have a big year as long as he's healthy in Missouri. They're loaded on offense. Brady Cook's a solid quarterback. Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator. But Burden's their best asset, and he's going to have a big year, and he's going to go in the first round.
Dawn, that was quite literally my next two picks that I was going to take right there. So great drafting by you right there. I'm actually going to stay at the same exact positions that you have right there because my next pick will be Kelvin Banks Jr., the left tackle out of Texas. He has been fantastic as a pass blocker throughout his career. Has done really well against premier guys like Dallas Turner and Will Anderson Jr. When he's a true freshman as well. And Kelvin Banks Jr., man, the thing about him is that he's a great pass blocker. He's a really good run blocker, too. He actually had the second most big-time blocks last year in college football, only behind Talisa Fuanga in the run game. So really dominant run blocker when he really has it going. But the issue with him is he's a little inconsistent as a run blocker. But if he can get more consistent in that area, man, he's a freak athlete, great pass blocker. And like I said, he's got high highs in the run game, too. I think Kelvin Banks Jr. Is pretty safe bet to be a first-round pick, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, we saw several offensive tackles go in the first round this past year, and every year in pass protection is getting more and more important. And Banks has just got a huge ceiling, man, athletically. He's got to clean up some of the inconsistency, but it would be hard for me to believe right now, especially with another year in Sarkisian's offense, Banks is going to be in the first round. I don't know. There's some who think he's better than Campbell, honestly, and I think I could see the argument with the ceiling and the amount of power that he plays with.
Yeah. And my next pick, Dalton, you mentioned before, is Tetro McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. I think it's pretty clear that he and Luther Burden are the top two receivers in college football, and pretty clear they're the top two receivers in the NFL draft. McMillan is a freak of nature, man. At 6'5", you comped him before to Mike Evans and Trevor Sikkema as a longtime Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan who never, ever make the comparison considering how much he loves Mike Evans. He actually agreed with you and said, yeah, I see a lot of Mike Evans in his game too. So unbelievable hands. Obviously, he can sky over defensive backs. And he actually moves a lot better than you might think for a guy that's that big too. So McMillan, a lot different of a receiver than Luther Burden III, but almost equally as good, man, for how good he's been over the course of his career. So Kelvin Banks Jr. and Tetro McMillan, those are my two picks right now.
Couple of great players. I'm on board with that. I could have taken either one of them had you not. But look, I think there's going to be a theme with this draft that we didn't see with this past year's draft, right? We didn't see a defensive player taken until number 15, right? To the Colts, Leatu Latu. You're going to see more of it this year. So my next two picks are actually both going to be defensive players, and where I'm going to start is down at Texas A&M with the guy who is currently Trevor Sikkema's edge one and just has a ton of measurables, man. I mean, you talk about Nick Scorton. Okay, last year was great at Purdue. Now he goes down to A&M, gets to prove it against SEC competition. I think he measures up very, very well to a Jared Verse, and there was no doubt last year that Jared Verse was going in the first round, right? Just huge measurables, length. He can play with a little more violence, but he's got this killer spin move that you talk about all the time. I think Scorton right now is getting a lot of hype, and he's got the right build to be a first-round edge rusher. And my second guy, I think, is actually probably a more obvious pick. I just put him in this order because I'm snaking it anyway. Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. This is, I'll tell you what, in coverage, he's just as good as Will Johnson. His technique, his footwork, everything about him is just spectacular in coverage. His flaws are more in the run defense and tackling size. He can be a little more physical when it comes to hitting ball carriers and things like that. But I think as a pure cover corner, he's as good as anybody in this draft. I think he's a first-round pick.
I love that. That was gonna be one of my picks, Benjamin Morrison for sure. So I like that pick a lot. I wanted to get all the corners if I could have, but you stole one from me right there. I'm actually going to go down with our top edge defender in college football here. That is James Pearce Jr. from Tennessee. Now, I understand why you went Scorton over him. He is higher on the PFF big board with Trevor Sikkema right now. And also just like the size factor, right, where Pearce is a little bit skinnier, and sometimes skinnier guys at edge defender kind of fall a little bit in the draft. But he's so rare, man. I mean, he hit 23 miles an hour on our GPS tracking at one point last year. He is just an unbelievable speed rusher, one of the three best pass rushers that we had in college football last year as well. Dominant player as a true sophomore, and there's still so much room for him to get better as well. So that's really scary when he's that dominant as a sophomore and can still get a lot better in terms of his technique. So I'm going to go with James Pearce Jr. as one of my two picks here.
Okay, that's reasonable. I mean, he's the best pure speed rusher in the country. I think the concern is he's listed at 242, and there's been other guys who have been at that weight and succeeded. I comp him a lot to Dallas Turner, and it was pretty much a guarantee that Dallas Turner was going first round last year. So I totally agree with that. I get it with Pearce. And honestly, just as a pure pass rusher and potential off the edge, he could very well be the best one. We have him as the best one. It's very tight. A lot of it depends on your preference, but I totally get it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and my next pick will be the only quarterback I'm willing to draft here. That is Carson Beck from Georgia. I'm doing it. I'm taking a quarterback here. I know a lot of people might avoid a quarterback, but I'm taking Carson Beck here. I would be pretty surprised if he's not a first-round pick in next year's draft. Obviously, you're going to have at least one quarterback go in the first round. I can't remember the last draft we didn't have a quarterback go in the first round. I'm going to go with Carson Beck here. I think he's the safest one. He's got a high floor. His timing is excellent. His accuracy is excellent. There's no way he has a bad year this year. Really, there's no way. I can't see it.
You left me some absolute studs on the board, though.
I don't know, man. I only have 2 players I have left that I want to draft. Like I don't know how many guys you have.
I could do. There's 5 or 6 more. I'm thinking.
Wow. Okay. All right. Cool.
Oh yeah.
Carson.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm taking Carson back here.
2 of them are slam dunks. One of them is a guy that we both have been just gushing over when we watch the tape. But I'll get to the first one first. Once I get it to Eli here, wow, okay, there's a guy really high on the board that hasn't been picked yet that I just have to take, right? And for me, the best safety in the 2025 class, Malachi Starks, and I'll go with the second guy too because I'm big on defensive guys in this year's draft, so I'm getting the best safety in this year's draft in Malachi Starks from Georgia, and then I'm getting Abdul Carter from Penn State, who is an absolute freak. Look, he's 31 on Trevor's big board right now. I think he very well by the end of the year could be in the top 10. You've got 2 guys that could be the very best. I think Carter, with as freaky as he is, there's probably some people by the end of the year that are going to say he's edge 1. Honestly, he just is an absolute. You want the Micah Parsons comp? There it is, man. I mean, he's moving up to the edge from linebacker. His eyes and his feet weren't really kind of tuned to linebacker last year. He did the best he could, but you could tell when he was blitzing, he's off the absolute charts. He's as freaky as any guy in this draft. And then Starks, I think he's going to come in. Him and Kevin Winston are the 2 guys that are above everybody else at safety. But there's a lot of people right now putting Starks in the top 10 of their board. He's as fundamentally sound as any player in the country. I'm taking those 2 guys. I'm staying on the defensive side of the ball. I think it's going to be a heavy defensive draft.
Okay. So, Dawn, I'm actually looking at it right now. I will be taking one more player, and then I'll open the floor to you to take as many as you want. I'm done after this player. I'm done taking the risk here, but I'm going to go with Dion Walker as my final player taken in this draft. I think Dion Walker, freak athlete, 6'6", 350. He told me in the interview, which you can check out the interview. I highly recommend it. I think it's in our D tackles video, I believe, or Dion Walker breakdown. Check out the interview's the end of that. But he is a freak athlete. He told me he can run a 4.6 Dalton at 350 pounds. If this guy runs a 4.6 at 350, he is going to be a top 10 pick. Guaranteed. And he led the nation in pressures last year at 350 pounds, which is absolutely ludicrous. Really good run defender as well. I think Dion Walker is just a rare human being. And still, like James Pearce Jr. was so productive last year, so many ways he can get better as well. So Dion Walker, because of that high ceiling and already how good he is already, I'm taking him as one of my guys here. Even though I don't, D tackle's tough, but I'm willing to take Dion Walker here.
You left me some options, man.
Keep going. As many as you want. I'm done drafting, so you're good.
There's one more guy I'm shocked you didn't take. I'm surprised beyond surprise that you didn't take Colston Loveland.
I really thought about it. I'm just scared of tight end.
With the way the tight end position is going in the NFL now, and the way
scared.
Let me start. I'm going to start with one that I'm going to think about that. I'm going to start with one that I really, really believe is going in the first round. Look, teams fall for freaky athletes, right? And I'm going with a guy at a position that I think could be really, really special this season. I think unless we get some serious variance, but look, this is a guy who played a ton of elite offenses last year and succeeded. There's not many players in the NFL like him, and I'm just killing time for Eli to type out his name, but Tario Davis from Arizona. Guys just aren't built like this. They're just not. 6'4", freaky length. And you talk about there's going to be certain teams in their schemes, especially like cover 3 kind of schemes, or teams that play a lot of man coverage. Like I'll tell you what, I could see somebody like Dan Quinn in Washington taking this guy and pairing him with Emmanuel Forbes. I think Tario Davis is freaky enough. When he goes out there at 6'4", and he possibly runs a 4.3, and you see what he can do in man-to-man coverage, there's sometimes he just eats receivers alive in press, man. So I'm going to start right there with Tario, because I just think sometimes you're talking about guys who grade highly in the film and all that stuff, and sometimes you're just talking about freaks. And I think for me, Abdul Carter and Tario Davis are in that category of like, wow, these guys are not normal. I think that's where we are with those guys. In the first round, you look for guys who aren't normal. I don't think Tario is normal at all. You just don't see guys like that at corner. So first rounder for me there. Oh man, do I take the swing just to do it? Let's see.
Remember the penalty.
You've left the floor open for me. Yeah, it's true. A 3-point. If that's how we're scoring it, a 3-point penalty is rough.
Yeah.
But to make more picks is valuable too if I'm right on them.
Correct.
And you've already bowed out.
Wow. I bowed out. I'm done.
So that's soft, Max.
I'm done.
All right. I'm going to go. Okay. And are we okay? And you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I was surprised that you didn't do it. I think we're going to get a tight end in the first round this year again. I'm going to take Loveland. I think he moves different. I know it's a reasonably deep tight end class, and a lot of people, it's always flavors and what type of guy do you want. But I think Loveland's just different than the rest of them. I really do. He just moves different. And I know in this offense, he may not put up the craziest numbers, but I think when you watch his tape, he's uncoverable. I mean, and the way, look at the last 4 teams that were in the postseason last year. Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, George Kittle.
Yep.
Look at those might be the 4 best tight ends in football. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking about, it's just such a massive advantage to have a guy like that. So whoever gets Colston Loveland or values him that highly, they know they're getting a weapon. He's just a freak of nature, right? And I think, again, you talk about a guy we think is clearly the best player at his position. That's Colston Loveland. I'm in on that. I'll take Loveland too. And maybe think about anybody else here, but you go ahead and rant for a minute.
No, I do. I thought about it. I thought about Loveland a lot when I was putting together this list, and I was like, man, just the fact that he's a tight end scared me. That's why I was like, I could see him falling to the second round for whatever reason, but I'm with it. That was one of my last ones I was considering was Colston Loveland, but yeah, I'm with that, man. I think he's one of the best players in the country, absolutely, and a guy that definitely could go in the first round. Right now, I would say should go in the first round, but just the fact that he's a tight end scared me enough to not take him in this guaranteed draft, I would say.
I don't know if I'll go with any more guarantees. Are we making a pick out of the box each of us, or how are we doing this?
So are you official? You're done. You're calling it right now.
How far out of the box do we have to be?
I say out of the top 32.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make one more official pick.
Okay, all right.
Because the guy I'm going to pick anyway, I'm just going to take the swing on it because I'm super high on it. I'm just going to do it because everybody in the building knows I'm in this boat. This is not my out-of-the-box pick. This will be a regular pick. One more.
All right.
I haven't taken a quarterback yet. You obviously did with Carson Beck. I'm going to take a swing at a quarterback. I think if he's protected, he's going to have a huge year. He's got all the weapons. He's got my guy LeJontay Wester from FAU. Shedeur Sanders, for one reason or another, is going to go in the first round. And I don't know if it'll be Dallas, I don't know if it'll be Vegas or if it'll be somebody else, the Giants, who knows. I think it's very rare that we only see one quarterback taken in the first round. I think about the Kenny Pickett class where he was the only one. This class is better than that class still, and I know we've got some guys we're projecting, but I'll take Shedeur Sanders as my quarterback, and now we can make an out-of-the-box pick.
Damn it. That was my out-of-the-box pick. If we're doing outside the top 32, that was the guy I was going to go with. All right, so I think, Dalton, the out-of-the-box pick, so for people who don't know, the Trevor Sickman's big board is available right now. You can find at pff.com. Highly recommended. Trevor does a great job. What we're going to do now is look outside of his top 32 prospects as of right now. No penalty for this, but you do get a point if you get it right. So there's no penalty for this one. But we're going to pick one guy who's outside the top 32 as one final pick to throw in here. So do you have – I'll let you go first if you have one because you stole my Sanders one. So I was going to do him, but I'll let you go if you have one.
I'm scrolling in between a couple of guys. There's a couple of really interesting guys here. I think I think I know where I'm leaning, but I'm going to point out a few that I'm thinking about. I think you might not. I think Trey Harris from Ole Miss is really interesting.
Okay.
I think some of these interior linemen are interesting, like a Tate Ratledge we could see with the pass protection ability. A Johnny Cornelius is another one a lot of people are really high on, and who knows if he could play the left side and all that. I think the guy I'm going to go with, though, and I just keep going back to athletic freaks, can do a little bit of everything. There's always one or two of these guys taken. I'm not going to go too far outside the top 32, and I'll type it in for Eli just to keep you under suspense and give you more time to study. But a guy that, until really breaking him down this offseason, I did not think he was as good an athlete as he is, especially with as good as he plays the run. I'm going to stay in the trenches. I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. I'm noticing a lot of defensive players on my side, so we're taking that swing. Let me go down to Louisville, and let me take Ashton Gelati. I think the strength, the speed at 275, 280, the versatility on a really good defense, like you just don't see a lot of guys like him. And I don't know that he'll lead the ACC or lead the country in sacks, but he's a guy when you dig into the tape, and I think he's going to put up a freaky combine when we get down to it. You see him run down some of these more mobile quarterbacks in the ACC, you're like, wait, why? What? That guy weighs 280? I think he's a guy who come pre-draft, and when people really start looking at the all-22, Ashton Gelati could be a real force in next year's draft. He could find his way into the 20s.
Yep. I'm all with that. I think Gelati is definitely one of the guys I was looking at too. I'm actually going to go with the guy who is number 47 on Trevor's big board. That is Denzel Burke, the corner out of Ohio State. He was dominant when he left on an island last year. He had a 19.1% single coverage completion rate allowed last year. That was 8th best among all corners in the country. Only allowed 5 catches in single coverage, and he had 6 combined interceptions and 4 completions in single coverage. So dominant when on an island, has really good length and speed to cover receivers one-on-one, and I think he's a veteran leader and a talented Ohio State secondary right now. So Trevor has him right at the edge of the top 50. I think Denzel Burke, and that's a position, too, that we always see corners go in the first round of the draft. I think Denzel Burke could be one of the guys that we see go in the first round. So I'll go with Denzel Burke as my outside top 32 guy that will make the first round of our draft. But, Eli, if you could just pop up the graphics again so we just go over the teams really quickly. This is my team right here: Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, Calvin Banks Jr., Tetro McMillan, James Pearce Jr., Carson Beck, Dion Walker. And my out-of-the-box pick is Denzel Burke. And let's go over to Dalton's team real quick. And Dalton, if you want to rattle off who you drafted.
Absolutely. A little bit longer, taking some swings. But Mason Graham from Michigan, Will Campbell from LSU, Luther Burden from Missouri, Nick Skorton from Texas A&M, Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, Malachi Starks from Georgia, Abdul Carter from Penn State, Tario Davis from Arizona, Colston Loveland from Michigan, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, and my slightly out-of-the-box pick is Ashton Gelati from Louisville.
All right, so that's what we got. Once again, this is the guaranteed first-rounders draft. So everyone we get right in April will get 1 point. Everyone we get wrong will get negative 3 points, and we'll figure out a punishment or a gift maybe to give the winner of this draft. I'm really excited to see how this ends up. I obviously went the safer route. Dalton's taking more swings to the fences. I'm really excited to see how this works out for this. That's what we got for our guaranteed first-rounders draft. Again, let us know in the comments below what you thought about this draft, and stay tuned for more college football content coming, previewing the 2024 season. Hey, thanks for watching the PFF College Football Show. Before I let you go, though, we have an unbelievable deal for you guys right now. If you use the code CFB25, you get 25% off your PFF Plus annual subscription. We've got the 2024 College Football Preview Guide that you can find over at pff.com, featuring the best players in the country from all 70 Power 5 teams, plus 10 Group of 5 teams that have the best chance at making the college football playoff as well. You can also gain access to NCAA premium stats for historical games, teams, and player tracking dating all the way back to 2014, so the last decade or so of college football. All the stats you can hope for, you can find in PFF Premium as well. Also, you can be the GM of your favorite NFL team with our unbelievable mock draft simulator, where you can draft up to 7 rounds of players for your NFL team. And if you want to dominate your fantasy league, you can do that as well using the best fantasy tools on the planet. All of that and more with your PFF Plus annual subscription, which you can find for 25% off right now with the code you can find in the description. Or if you want to go to subscribe.pff.com and use the code CFB25 at checkout. Again, you get 25% off your PFF Plus subscription. This won't last forever, so make sure you take advantage of it right now.